in the Vyasa Puja festival
in Hawaii.
in Hawaii. And then everybody, Bala Maharaj was there, you were there, Umadidi was there. And then somebody brought up the question of like, is it Tishtam Raje, right? Like we should be in Braj by mind,
right.
But we should also, but some people say like, oh, you know, you're gonna go in down and then you can stay here by mind or something like that. So it was like, but this is, and then Umadidi said like, yeah, but why so many people that are gonna leave their body, they go to Vrindavan to leave their body there? Because they know that that is higher. You know, like you cannot say. And then you said, you explained it very nice, like you reconcile that. How, because we can say like, oh yeah, this is New Braj, no different from Vrindavan, but I think there's some difference, like.
Of course there is.
Yeah, you know, like.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like if somebody tells me like you're gonna die, then like, okay, I'm going to Vrindavan, right?
Yeah,
So
Srila Prabhupada even also.
Yes. There's
Prabhupada.
So you said how Chaitishtambraja is not applicable to everybody if they're not in that stage, as in like the Vrindavan in this world, it's not like New York or Los Angeles for someone who doesn't have the consciousness that he's in Vrindavan. Something along those words. And Umadidi also explained it sometime.
Well, I've turned on the Facebook Live, so I'll get into that a little bit.
No, we're just...
Okay. Gurve Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadalaya Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadabhaktaya Namo Namaha Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Juta Patakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Om Jnanati Mirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Langayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Vande Shri Gurun Dinataram Vancha kalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha Namo mahabhadanyaya Krishna prema pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaura Chise Namaha Nityanandam Namastubhyam Prem Ananda Pradayane Kalo Kalmashanashaya Janava Pataye Namaha Ajanu Lambita Bujo Kanakavadato Samkirtanaika Pitaro Kamalaya Taksho Vishvambaro Dvijavaro Jugadharma Palo Pande Jagat Priyakaro Karunavataro Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jayatam Suruto Bangor Mama Mandamater Gati Matsarvasva Padam Bojo Radha Madana Mohano Divyad Brindaranya Kalpadrumadha Shimad Ratnagar Singhasanasto Shimad Radha Srila Govinda Devo Preshtalibhi Sevyamano Smarami Shriman Rasarasaramhi Vam Shivata Tatakstitaha Karshan Venu Swanair Gopir Gopinata Shriyestunaha Brindai Tulsi Devbai Priyai Keshavasyacha Krishna Bhakti Prade Devi Satyavachai Namo Namah Bhaktya Vihina Aparadhalakshay Kshiptascha Kamadi Taranga Madhye Kripa Maitvam Sharanam Prabhannam Brinde Namaste Charanarvindam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. I'm first of all offering my unlimited Dandavat Pranams and my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most worshipable, beloved Gurudev, Nitya Lila Pravishta, Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa, Ashtatarasata Sri Srila, A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada. Then I'm offering my same unlimited Dandavat Pranams and my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most worshipable beloved Siksha Gurudevs. Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Ashtatarasata Sri Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj and Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Ashtatarasata Sri Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. I'm offering my Dandavat Pranams at the lotus feet of my Sri Sri Rupa Nuga Guru Varga. And I'm offering my Dandavat Pranams to all the Vaishnavas and to all the Vaishnavas. So now we're continuing with Srila Raghunath Das Goswami Pads. Sri Vilapa-kusumanjali, and we're offering our unlimited Dandavat Pranams at the lotus feet of our Prayojan Tattva Acharya Srila Raghunath Das Goswami Pad and praying for his causeless mercy that we can enter even one small tiny bit into the deep, deep moods that he is expressing here. So, we've reached verse 24, and yes, we heard yesterday that eagerness, utsaha also. Utsahan means enthusiasm, but Gurudev is also using the word eagerness for utsaha. Gurudev told many things about that topic in our last reading in his commentary to verse 23. And in the end of that commentary, he's saying that actually eagerness may even be there. Because he made the point that without eagerness, even to do Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, there's no question of entering into Raganuga bhakti. So eagerness has to be there. That's why Rupa Goswami has written Utsahan Nishchayat Dairyat in his third verse of Upadeshamrita, telling the 6 favorable qualities one must have. If one does not have this in bhakti, there's no question of advancing to higher stages. So Gurudev told about that.
That was also one of the very first verses that Prabhupada...
Can you use the mic? Mm-hmm.
It was also one of the very first verses that Prabhupada spoke of when he first started giving class in New York in 1966. He was in March and April. He was giving Bhagavad Gita classes, and then he gave that verse.
That's you heard the lecture?
Yeah, the lecture.
Yeah.
That's how important it is.
Actually, although Prabhupada did not present the book itself, Upadeshamrita, until 1975. I remember working on it in the layout department, the cover, Rupa Goswami Samadhi. So, but once I read it, because we didn't even know of the existence of that book. We didn't know the title, Upadeshamrita, like this. Prabhupada knows why he waited until then. So, but he released it at that time. Yeah. And then we became aware of Srila Rupa Goswami's 11 shlokas. Later on, when we came to our Gurudev, Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj, he really stressed Upadeshamrita so much, didn't he? He gave classes right here, I think the second year that he came. And there was a book produced from his lectures called The Essence of All Advice. You know, so, and Gurudev also used to say that first you have to fix your goal. That's the first thing that someone has to do. Even in material achievements or attempts, you have to fix your goal. This is what I want. This is what I want to accomplish. Only when you fix your goal can you determine how to accomplish that, what will be the process, even to go on a journey. I have to get my visa, I have to get my passport, I have to get my ticket, I have to take such and such test, or get a false. So, everything that we do, there's always the sadhya, which means the goal, and there's the sadhana to attain it. So Gurudev clarified this many times. He said, first thing, you have to fix your goal. But this is why Gurudev was giving to us this conclusion, the prayojan. He was giving the prayojan to everyone. Because that goal is different for different levels of sadhakas. But for those who are Rupanuga, there's only one. There's only one goal. And that has to be focused on. He's saying that here, actually. I'm going to repeat this a little before we go on to the next verse. So, then Gurudev would say, so, then you can determine what is the process. Okay, that's called the sadhana. So there's sadhya, goal, and sadhana, the practice to attain it. So Gurudev would say, what is that process? It's called Upadeshamrita. That's it. Rupa Goswami has given. And it's very interesting, because in the last shloka of Gurudev's version of the Upadeshamrita, where there's 3 different commentaries, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and Radharaman Das Goswami. So those 3 authoritative commentaries are there. So in the last verse, the 11th shloka, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, is telling what was the origin of this Upadeshamrita. What was the source of this Upadeshamrita? Was it Rupa Goswami who wrote it? Yes. But where did Rupa Goswami obtain that from? From Mahaprabhu. Do you remember?
At the ocean in Puri.
Yeah, take the mic.
So Srila Rupa Goswami is with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at the seashore in Jagannath Puri. And it was there that Mahaprabhu disclosed to him.
When did he do it?
I mean, what was...
He had fainted, and his associates were surrounding him, trying to revive him, as he had done many, many times. And at this particular time, Srila Rupa Goswami was there, visiting Puri with Mahaprabhu, and he was in that group. So when Mahaprabhu came again into external consciousness, he sat up, and then he began to speak. And what came from his lotus mouth is this Upadeshamrita. Of course, Rupa Goswami took what he told and composed these 11 shlokas. So, Gurudev would often stress to us that the process is called this Upadeshamrita. Of each and every verse, one has to follow. And then only gradually then one can come to the higher stages, come into Madhyam stage, then come into the stage of deep, deep, total immersion, constantly, in living Tishtan Braje, living in Braj, living in the holy Dham. Because that's essential, that's part of the process. It's not that that part of the process can be eliminated. We must live in Braj to perform what bhakti? Raganuga bhakti. Vaidhi bhakti can do, but Raganuga bhakti means trying to attain the moods of who? The Ragatmik Jan, who are eternally in Braj. So what we're reading here, we are reading the moods, the prayers of Raghunath Das Goswami, who is the eternal associate. Tulsi-manjali, Rati-manjali, having descended from Goloka Vrindavan, but he's teaching us as a sadhak how to perform Rag Anuga, Rag Marg Bhakti. He's teaching. But he's also, because of Yogamaya, he's also experiencing. He's also feeling those moods. Not that he's thinking, no, actually I'm Tulsi Manjari and I'm always there. No. Internal, external, and partly internal, partly external. Continually, 24 hours a day. And then his Gurudev would say, after coming to the point of properly following and executing Upadeshamrita in your life, going deeply into that practice, whatever is told there, then one can move into the book that Raghunath Das Goswami has also given, which is the next stage. It's called Manasiksha. And Manasiksha is all about what is required to enter into Rag Marg Bhakti, how to do it. In 11 verses also. We also can, actually 12, one for the fruit, that is obtained. So, yes, the moods. Gurudev is pointing out at the end of his commentary that eagerness may be there. We may have some eagerness, and that's really good if we can have some true eagerness, right? He said, but only that, it will not do. Just to have some eagerness. That alone cannot accomplish what we want. He says we will have to go in the process of Rupa Goswami and Raghunath Das Goswami. We'll have to go in the process that they have given. Then we can have some bhakti. And when we analyze, we see that not even a little bhakti is there. When we analyze, we see not even a little bhakti is there in us. Do you think you have any bhakti? Gurudev, you know who he's speaking to? He's speaking to the ISKCON leaders who have come to him for these darshans. The whole book is spoken to them. So he's saying to them, do you think you have any bhakti? I think that certainly I have no bhakti, he says about himself. My Gurudev has kindly given me his instructions, and we have heard some Katha from his mouth, and now we are giving it as if it is ours, but there is no bhakti at all.
Well, that's a premonition about what was about to happen.
Yeah, of course. All-knowing. So he says, we have no taste in chanting, nor in any devotional activities, but still, some hope is there. Because he's quoted the verse of Rupa Goswami. We read that verse. Prachinanam bhajanam atulam dushkaram shrinvato me nairashyena jvalati hridayam bhakti lesha lasasya vishvadrichim agaharatava karunya vichim asha bindukshitam idam upetyantare hantashaityam. So here's Rupa Goswami. We get to hear this verse one more time before we move on. And what is he telling? He's praying to Krishna. Which form of Krishna is he praying to?
Killer of Agasur?
That's correct. He is praying to the slayer of Aghasur. But also Aghasur is representing what? Agha, sins. So, Rupa Goswami is expressing that when I hear of the extremely difficult sadhana and the bhajan that is performed by great devotees like Sri Shuka and Maharaj Ambarish in previous times, Prachinanam. Prachinanam means ancient times. Such great sages, they performed such extreme bhajan. And Gurudev goes into more details about that. So, Rupa Goswami is saying that when I hear of this extremely difficult sadhana bhajan, then my heart, which is devoid of any tinge of devotion, becomes afflicted with remorse and also hopelessness, because such difficult sadhana will never be possible for me. And thus I feel that I will never be able to obtain your lotus feet, O slayer of the Agha demon. But when I see the waves of mercy, waves that you have spread everywhere from Brahma down to the most degraded sinners, then my heart becomes pacified again and instilled with the sunshine ray of hope. This is how we should remember this. Now, of course, Rupa Goswami is truly feeling that way, but this is his pastime to teach us. So, in that way, Gurudev, he comes to the end of this commentary, and then he's saying that actually I have no bhakti, but I've heard some Katha from the lotus mouth of my Guru. He has also given me instructions. And so now we are also speaking Katha. But actually, it is not really ours. And he says, although we are speaking this as if it is ours, but there is no bhakti at all. We have no taste in chanting nor in any devotional activities, but still, some hope is there. So, Kostendra Sunu Dayate, that's in this verse. So he's saying, Raghunath Das Goswami is telling that Srimati Radhika is very near and dear to Krishna. So in Nishanta Lila, or in the Nakta Lila, that means in the midnight, in the Kunja, then when Srimati Radhika's hair, her dress, and ornamentation is messed up, so she rebukes Krishna in her mood of Swadhin Bhartrika. That means commanding. And she's very confident now because Krishna is completely submissive. So she rebukes Krishna. She says, you've messed up my hair. Now my hair, it is going here and there. You should put it in order. So at once, Tulsi Manjari and Rupa Manjari and Lavanga Manjari, they enter the kunja with golden plates, with so many pots of fragrant oil and anjana, tilak, and flowers, everything that is needed to redecorate Srimati Radhika. So Krishna takes a comb, and he takes Srimati Radhika's hair in his hand. Krishna's hands are like what? Blue lotuses. And Radhika's hair is like what?
Black snake.
The flow of the Yamuna. Lotus flower, blue lotus, and flow of Yamuna. Krishna's soft hand combs her hair, but sometimes when he combs, Radhika says, ah. Then with very soft hands, he puts some fragrant oil in her hair and very smoothly combs it, and then he decorates it with flowers. So Raghunath Das Goswami saw this scene, and when this scene disappeared, he began to weep. And then he prayed to Radhika. Ha Narmada Gratita Sundara Sukshma Malyaya. Narmada is the daughter of the gardener, and she makes very good garlands, by which I may decorate Srimati Radhika's braid. So Raghunath Das Goswami is thinking like this. How much he's meditating on Krishna, who's doing that service, but now he is aspiring that he will be able, in his Manjari form, to do that service. Pranayayar, that means with love and affection. Pranay. Pranay is one of the stages of praying. And Gurudev is saying that this stage comes after the stage of Man. Sometimes Pranay comes before the stage of Man, and sometimes after. So with Pranay, with heartfelt love, he is praying, may I perform this service to you. Then the question someone asks, why? Why? Why perform this service? And then he says, because once your hair is nicely decorated, then you will go to Yashoda Balan, and Krishna will see this, and at once he will become attracted to you. So I want to serve you in this way. This is the moods of the manjaris. Everything they do is to enhance Srimati Radhika's beauty and all of her moods and make all necessary arrangements that Radha and Krishna will meet together and they'll have such sweet, beautiful pastimes. So Gurudev ends his commentary with this sentence. He says, at first, we should do Vaidhi Bhakti and preach. We went into a whole discussion yesterday about Prabhupada's technique of engaging everyone. And then there was a whole discussion which was so sweet and so inspiring, how Prabhupada engaged the Western disciples in distributing his books, and how that whole phenomena took place. Because at first there was very little book distribution. Everyone was just chanting on the streets together in a group. But then it began. So we heard some of the history. Rishabdev Prabhu was actually right there in San Francisco when it began. And he told some of the details of that story. Very amazing story. How it began. Krishna made it happen, of course, but that's a whole discussion in itself. So, Gurudev is telling us that at first, in the beginning stages of our bhakti life, so we should do Vaidhi Bhakti and we should preach. But in doing that, we should eagerly wait for greed to come. We should eagerly wait for greed to come. And that doesn't mean 1 or 2 days waiting, whole lifetime. Maybe it will come. That's what we have to demonstrate to our gurus, to Krishna, to all of our worshipable personalities. We have to prove. It's not so cheap. We have to prove. Then they will give that benediction. Greed will come in little doses. Gurudev was always telling us what he's speaking is planting these seeds so that one day greed can come. This Katha, his books, everything. That's the purpose. That's the purpose. One day, greed can come. It can only come by hearing Katha. It can only come by being absorbed deeply in this Braj Katha that is coming from the lips of Braj Rasik Bhavuk Vaishnavas. That's all. That's the only method that greed comes. How do we know that? Because Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has written a whole book about it. Ragvartma Chandrika, which we have. Gurudev gave that book. So, in that way, we can hope that Raga Nuga greed will come. So, that was verse 23. Verse 24 now. Subhaga Mrigame Danaka. No, sorry. Subhaga Mrigamade Kanda. Subhaga Mrigama. This is a difficult one. Subhaga Mrigamade Kanda. Suvramsu Bhakte. Jai Shri Radha Govinda. Subhaga Mrigame Danakanda Subramsu Bhakte. Tilakam ihalalate devi modad vidaya. Mashrinya Gushrinya Charcham Arpayatva Chagatre Stana Yugamapi Gandhais Chiritram Kim Karishya. Okay. So, we read this. This is where it's describing about in the commentary. We just read this first section. Okay. So we're continuing to complete this commentary. It's like about 4 pages. Okay. So the verse reads, O Devi, when will I happily place a beautiful musk tilak on your forehead, which is as splendid as the full moon, glistening kumkum on your limbs, and wonderful pictures and designs in fragrant colors on your breasts. So you can repeat, Subhaga, Mrigamadena, Kanda, Shubramshu, Vatte, Tilakam, Iha Lalate, Devi, Modad, Vidhaya, Mashrina, Gushrina, Charcham, Arpayatva, Chagatre, Stanayugam, Abhigandaish, Chitritam, Kim Karishye. Repeat, O Devi, when will I happily place beautiful musk tilak on your forehead, which is as splendid as the full moon, and glistening kumkum on your limbs, and wonderful pictures and designs in fragrant colors on your breasts. So here Raghunath Das Goswami is praying in his eternal Swarup as Tulsi Manjari, who is a Pran Sakhi. She is Swapaksha and Radha Snedhadika. That is, that she has more affection for Radhika than for Krishna. So Tulsi Manjari always resides with Srimati Radhika. She never desires the company of those who are Vipaksha, who are inimical to Radhika. Tulsi Manjari prays, O Devi, when will I have the fortune that I will decorate your forehead with tilak made from musk and adorn the partition in your hair with a line of vermilion. So then, which we read at the end of the class yesterday, this amazing description, Gurudev, describing how that Raghunath Das Goswami was residing in Jagannath Puri with Swarup Damodar and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And by always hearing from them and by serving them, an intense greed to become a Radha Dasi arose in him. That's how it arose. It wasn't there, at least externally. It wasn't there prior. But by being with Swarup Damodar Goswami, with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in hearing from them, a greed arose to become a Radha Dasi, a servant of Radha. It arose in him. By the association of that kind of Rasik Vaishnava, by hearing and remembering, this greed becomes so deep, it becomes like a stai bhav. So deep it becomes, like a sthai bhav. What's sthai bhav? We know. Sakya, Madhurya, like that. These are the sthai bhavs that can never ever be changed. So by the association of that kind of a Rasik Vaishnava, and by hearing, remembering, this greed becomes so deep. This greed is very deep, like sthai bhav, and it can never be changed in any way. Never. So after that devotee, he follows internally and externally. After that greed, then he follows internally and externally. So as this greed increased more and more, Raghunath Das Goswami, he realized his specific identity as Tulsi Manjari with a sthai bhav, a permanent sentiment which can never be changed in any way. And then he performed Raga Nuga Bhakti both internally and externally. And then Gurudev is describing the pathetic scene of how Raghunath Das Goswami, having been with Mahaprabhu and Swarup Damodar, then Mahaprabhu went into a Prakat Lila. He departed. So what happened to Raghunath Das Goswami? He had only this shelter. He completely rested only on Swarup Damodar. And he was always bitterly weeping for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He stopped even taking Mahaprasadam. But although Mahaprabhu had disappeared from his external vision, Swarup Damodar was there to console him. But soon afterwards, Swarup Damodar also left this world. And then Raghunath Das became quite helpless. And he gave up drinking water and even desired to leave his life. But instead, he took shelter of who? Who was still there in Puri? Gadadhar Pandit, who himself was always crying in separation, Gadadhar. He was always crying in separation from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with a Radha Bhav for Krishna. Because who is Gadadhar Pandit? Yes. Soon, Gadadhar Pandit also left this world. And then there was no one left to console Raghunath Das Goswami. He decided to go to Vrindavan. And he wanted to go there and give up his life by jumping from Govardhan or drowning in the Yamuna River. This is his plan. So after arriving in Mathura, he proceeded to Vrindavan, where he fell at the feet of Rupa and Sanatan. And he wept bitterly. We can just imagine such a scene, huh? He meets Rupa Sanatan, falls at their feet, and he's just absolutely overwhelmed, bitterly crying in separation. They both tried to console him in the mood that he's like younger brother, because Mahaprabhu told them that they should accept Raghunath Das Goswami like their younger brother. So they tried to console him, and they advised him to always reside at Radhakunda. That's how he came there, because they told him, you should be here. This is where you should be. So after some time, Sanatana Goswami also disappeared. And then Raghunath Das Goswami's condition was like that of a man who is stranded in the ocean and everything which he grabs onto simply sinks. That was his condition. And now, only Rupa Goswami remained to console Raghunath Das Goswami, who was always absorbed in weeping and chanting Harinam and remembering Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes in the mood of Radhika, feeling separation from Krishna, such as how he would rub his face on the wall in the Gambhira. So Rupa Goswami is always remembering like this. And how he would exhibit Ashta Sattvic Bhavs, Mahaprabhu, in Puri. So now, Raghunath Das Goswami had left everything. But Rupa Goswami requested him to maintain his life. So he used to take a very small amount of buttermilk every day. That's all. He had left everything else. But, you know that chaj that we were talking about, the runoff from the yogurt churning into butter. So he would take a very small amount of that every day. Now comes the next section, Gurudev. This next section is called Suhrid Rati and the Leaf Cup from Sakhi Stali. We've heard this pastime before. There was a Brijvasi who would daily bring Raghunath Das a small leaf cup of buttermilk to drink for his sustenance. But one day he brought a cup made from large kadamba leaves which he had collected at Sakhi Stali. What is Sakhi Stali? Yes, this is the residence of Chandravali, situated on the eastern side of Govardhan. Now seeing it, the leaf cup, Raghunath Das said, usually I take buttermilk from a very small leaf cup, but I see that today you have brought a very large one. From where have you obtained it? When the Brijvasi told him that he had collected it from Sakhi Stali, he became furious. Padma and others in Chandravali's camp are always trying to snatch Krishna away from Radhika and to make him meet with Chandravali. So, Raghunath Das Goswami did not like anything from Sakhi Stali. He picked up a stick and chased away that Brajvasi who could not understand Raghunath Das Goswami's inner sentiments. All gopis have Madhurya Rati as their staivav. Is that true or not? Yes. They cannot be a gopi unless they have Madhurya Rati. But this particular sentiment, which was exhibited by Raghunath Das, this is called Suhrid Rati. Suhrid. Meaning that one is opposed to anything which is opposed to Radhika. And this is why he became furious upon being offered something from Sakhi Stali, because of that mood of Suhrid Rati. Now the symptom of this is thinking that anything which is favorable for one's Ishtadeva, one's worshipable Lord, anything that is favorable and is also favorable for one's self. So a Sakhi of Radhika is always thinking about what is favorable for the service of Srimati Radhika. Those who possess Suhrid Rati, they see everything with this discrimination. If Radhika does not desire to meet Krishna, they try to make sure that they don't meet. Yet they know that internally Radhika always desires to meet Krishna, whether she is outwardly expressing it or not. They know that. But they also support. And what do? Yes. If she does not desire, then that they don't meet, yeah. So, if Radhika does not desire to meet Krishna, then they try to make sure that they don't meet the manjaris. No, you can't come. We've heard so many times how Krishna comes to the kunja and the manjaris are guarding and they're saying, no, you cannot come. So, if Radhika does not desire to meet Krishna, then they try to make sure that they don't meet. Yet, although they're doing that, they know that internally Radhika always desires to meet Krishna. She's only outwardly expressing this. Whether she is outwardly expressing it or not, they know that she always desires to meet Krishna. So sometimes even if she is prohibiting it, then sometimes even she's prohibiting, they make the arrangement for her to meet Krishna. But in all circumstances, it is solely for the pleasure of Radhika. And this is called Suhrid Rati Staibhav. In Suhrid Rati, Srimati Radhika desires service only from this kind of a Sakhi. In that Suhrid Rati, Srimati Radhika desires service only from this kind of a Sakhi. So one morning, after Radhika had bathed, then Kundalata came from Nandagaon. Yashoda had sent a message with her to Jatila, not directly to Radhika. I'm reading that again, so we get the scene carefully. One morning after Radhika had bathed, then Kundalata came from Nandagaon. And Yashoda had sent a message with Kundalata to Jatila. Not directly to Radhika, but to Jatila. And the message was saying, you should at once send your daughter-in-law to cook for my son because he's growing thinner and thinner. Who gave that message? Yashoda. Yes, Yashoda. She also sent many ornaments with the proposal because she knew that Jatila is somewhat selfish and crooked. Now Jatila replied to Kundalata, why should I send my new daughter-in-law here and there? Tell Yashoda that she should call her own daughter-in-law for this purpose.
Who's your own daughter-in-law?
Well, she doesn't have one, right? But that's Jatila. This is my daughter-in-law. I'm not just going to be sending her here and there. Tell Yashoda she should call her own daughter-in-law. So she knew full well, Jatila knew that Yashoda didn't actually have a daughter-in-law, but due to excessive anger she spoke like this. Then Jatila complained to the personification of Yogamaya, which is who? Purnamasi. Jatila complained to her. She said, Yashoda considers herself to be the queen of Vrindavan. I am not less than Yashoda. So why should I send my daughter-in-law to her as a servant? I cannot do it. And Purnamasi told her, you should send her. Because I am the knower of past, present, and future. I know that if you do not obey the order of Yashoda, your son and all of your cows will die. Purnamasi telling. All the Brajvasis follow Purnamasi. She's a Mahayogini. She knows everything, past, present, future. If she tells something, they do it. Okay? So, if you desire, she continues to tell Jatila, if you desire your own welfare, then send her at once to Nandagam to cook for Krishna, and it will be good for both you and your son. So then Jatila became fearful, and she told Kundalata, oh, because you are as dear to me as my own daughter, I am placing my new daughter-in-law in your hands. She told the Kundalata, take her to Nandagaon, but beware. In Nandagaon there is a very black serpent, and if he bites anyone, they cannot leave there. So always try to protect her from this serpent. Before Radhika departed for Nandagaon, the Manjaris bathed her, and in verse 19, Rati Manjari is praying to Srimati Radhika, please give me the good opportunity to apply musk tilak to your forehead. So in this verse comes the word Subramshu, which means full moon. When the moon is full, it is round, but there are many blemishes on it. In the full moon, which the Manjaris are decorating on Radhika's forehead, there is red, yellow, green, and finally golden designs. And in the middle is a very effulgent bindi dot. So from his boyhood, Krishna liked the full moon. And knowing this, they draw a very attractive full moon on her forehead. Then, when Vishaka and Lalita arrange for Srimati Radhika and Krishna to meet, they smile because they know that by this full moon decoration, the Krishna deer can be caught. Yes. That's why Vishaka and Lalita, then they arrange for Srimati Radhika and Krishna to meet. And when they're making that arrangement, they're smiling because they know this full moon decoration, the Krishna deer can be caught. Because it is so beautiful, when Krishna sees this, he will certainly enter the trap and he'll be caught. They also applied kumkum to Radhika's body, and they braided her hair in such a way that it became like a female black serpent which is ready to bite Krishna. Yes, that's why. Because they want to arm Srimati Radhika. So, seeing this braid that looks like a what? A female black serpent ready to bite Krishna. So seeing this braid, Krishna will be brought under the control of Radhika's brain. After decorating her to appear immensely beautiful, they were ready to go to Yashoda Bhavan at Nandagaon. Now Krishna was waiting at Terkadamba with the cows and all the other cowherd boys, and Radhika came along accompanied by all of her manjaris and sakis. Lalita advised her not to go by this path, saying, you should go by another path so that you will be very far away from him. So Lalita is steering their little group as they're coming near to Terkadamba, which is that's where Rupa Goswami used to stay. But during Krishna's pastimes, he was always coming there to Terkadamba, because it's right at the base of the hill, of Nandagaon Hill. So that was vast forest at that time. So there's a particular Kadamba tree there. That's why it's named Ter Kadamba. Yeah. And when you go there, oh, it's such an amazing place. It's such an amazing place. Ter Kadamba. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Prabhupada, when he was performing the Braj Mandala Parikrama, I think it was in 1932 perhaps. So, they were setting up tents and going by foot, the entire Braj Mandala. They had there's actually a photo that was taken of Bhaktisiddhanta with all of the pilgrims, a group photo. And you can see the tents in the background. So this was a big operation. Certain devotees went ahead and put up the tents and everything. So toward the end of the parikrama, one time Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Prabhupada, he asked to Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj, which place did you like the best in all of Braj Mandala? And Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj answered, Ter Kadamba. This is the place where Rupa Goswami would write his books under this Kadamba tree, reciting the shlokas. This Kadamba tree was from 5,000 years before. It was associate of Krishna. And also Krishna used to climb up in that Kadamba tree and call his cows and like that. So Rupa Goswami resided in that place, right? And when he would be reciting the shlokas that he had composed, which were describing the moods of separation between Radha and Krishna, the tree would shed its leaves and so forth, like tears. And when he would recite the shlokas that he composed describing Radha and Krishna's jubilation and moods when they would meet, there's some Bhog Leela, then the tree would blossom with Kadamba flowers immediately. So that tree had disappeared, but our Gurudev, he was his mood was very similar, deep gravity mood when we were there in that courtyard. They have a beautiful courtyard there. Simple. It's right in the middle of the forest. No palatial buildings, but they have a small building that was erected, very small, of the Bhajan Kutir of Rupa Goswami. And on the marble surrounding the archway of the entrance to his room, his Bhajan Kutir, small, there are a couple of shlokas written by Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj, composed by him. Did you know that? Yeah. So when Gurudev would come and sit in the courtyard there, his mood would be so similar to when we would go with him to Radha Damodar temple in the courtyard of Rupa Goswami's Bhajan Kutir and Samadhi. Very deep and grave, Gurudev's moods. Yeah. And right near to there's a kunda, there's a pond there. And then you have to go away from this little grove of trees, and then you have to just walk a few yards, and there's the actual place. Now they have like a big upraised, nice circular platform where the actual tree used to be. And Gurudev planted new Kadamba trees there. Yeah. So that's called Ter Kadamba. So here in this pastime, there's a lot of pastimes that took place in Ter Kadamba also, with Rupa and Sanatan Goswami. I'll just tell one quickly. So Rupa and Sanatan Goswami also resided not far from there, in a place called Pavan Sarovara. Not very long walking distance. He had his Bhajan Kutir there. at the base of the hill of Nandagaon. And so he would come and meet Rupa Goswami sometimes. And as you know, Sanatana Goswami is also the guru of Rupa Goswami, his elder brother and his guru. So Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami were sitting together there underneath that Kadamba tree. And they were so immersed, and their moods were so deep that they had barely any external awareness. And then a young, beautiful little village girl came there and said, oh Baba, my mother, she has sent me here with these nice ingredients because you are always doing so much fasting. So she has sent rice, and she has sent milk and sugar and various other ingredients. So she has sent me here to deliver them to you, and you can cook them, and then you can break your fasting, You can make paramanna, sweet rice. But they didn't even notice her, barely. They kind of noticed, but they didn't take any heed. And so then that village girl said, Acha, I see, you are too much deeply absorbed. So I will cook it myself. And then within a moment, she made a fire and cooked sweet rice. Then she brought it to them and said, my mother is calling me, I have to go back. Then she left. They saw her. And they thought, what a beautiful village girl. And she cooked this pot of sweet rice. So Rupa Goswami offered this sweet rice and then wanted to give first to Sanatana Goswami. And when Sanatana Goswami tasted the sweet rice, he became overwhelmed with ecstasy, and ecstatic symptoms were coming on his body. And then Rupa Goswami, he also tasted the sweet rice. And same thing happened. And then Sanatana Goswami said, Rupa, did you have some desire? And then Rupa said, well, yes, I had a desire that I wanted to cook sweet rice for you, right? And offer it to Radha and Krishna. And then he said, oh, because of your desire, our Ishta Devi, Radhika herself, came here and she cooked this sweet rice. This is very bad that you had such a desire. You engaged her in our service. So that pastime took place right there at Terkadamba. So Gurudev is telling that after decorating Srimati Radhika to appear immensely beautiful, they were ready to go to Yashoda Bhavan at Nandagaon. So Krishna was waiting at Terkadamba with the cows. And all the other cowherd boys were also there with him. And then Radhika came along, accompanied by all of her manjaris and sakis. Then at that point, Lalita advised her not to go by this path, saying, you should go by another path so that you will be very far away from him. Then Radhika replied, I don't fear Krishna. Who is this Krishna? Then Lalita became silent and they proceeded. As they came nearer, Krishna took the tail of a calf, gave it a twist, and it ran straight to where Radhika and the gopis were. Then Krishna followed behind the calf until it came to Srimati Radhika. And when he pushed her with his hand, Krishna pushed Radhika with his hand, all the gopis fearfully began running here and there. Oh, the calf pushed her. Wait. Krishna followed behind the calf, until it came to Srimati Radhika, and when he pushed her with his hand, all the gopis fearfully began running here and there. Then Krishna ran away, and Lalita said, I warned you not to come by this path. He is very naughty. So they continued on their way, and though Radhika really wanted to meet with Krishna, she made her mood appear in such a way that everyone would think that she did not want to meet with him. And on another occasion, she broke his necklace of pearls, and they were scattered everywhere. And then she sat down and made a show of not looking towards Krishna, but still she would be peeping at him from time to time. Every day there are varieties of pastimes like this. So after arriving at Nanda Bhavan, she prepares so many different foodstuffs, such as Manohar Laddu, and Amrita Keli, and Ras Malai. So while Radhika is in Yavat, this is the last paragraph of the commentary. While she is in Yavat, she is always burning in separation, and in the kitchen at Yashoda Bhavan, there are hundreds of hot stoves. She cooks in close proximity to these fires, but she considers it to be very cool there in comparison to the burning separation she feels in Yavat. She prepares everything in a pleasing mood. Then Krishna comes and takes bath. Yashoda orders some Sakis to bathe him, and the Sakis make jokes while bathing him. So where does Krishna come from?
Covered.
Yeah, because Krishna has gone to the cow barns and everything and has milked the cows. Then he comes back and there's going to be prashadam. There's going to be a big joyful feast every single day.
So this is like his brunch or breakfast.
Yeah, that's right. It's probably like a little bit later, you know. So, yeah, it has to be a little later. What am I saying? Because there are the different time divisions, right? So, the time division in which this is Pratak Lila, in the very beginning of Krishna's day, and all these different activities take place, and then he comes back to Nanda Bhavan as he's bathed, and then he comes and sits down and takes his meal. So, Srimati Radhika, she prepares everything in a pleasing mood, then Krishna comes and takes bath. And Yashoda orders some Sakis to bathe him, and the Sakis make jokes while bathing him. Then Krishna calls out, "Oh mother, oh mother!" And Yashoda comes at once and says in great anxiety, "What happened?" And seeing Krishna laughing, and the gopis also laughing, she returns. She returns to the kitchen. But as soon as she heard Krishna say, oh mother, she came with great anxiety. What happened? And then they all laugh. So, seeing Krishna laughing, and the gopis also laughing, then Yashoda returns. Next, Krishna takes his breakfast. And then he takes the cows out to graze for the day. This is all included within Pratak Lila, the morning pastimes. Gaur Premanande, Srila Raghunath Das Goswami Pada Ki Jai, Shri Shri Vilapa-kusumanjali Ki Jai, Srila Gurudev's Transcendental Commentary Ki Jai, Shri Rupanuga Guru Varga Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna,
Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radhe, Jaya Krishna, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Krishna.
Jaya Radhe, Jaya Krishna, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Krishna.
Jaya Vrishabhanu Nandini Radhe Radhe, Vrishabhanu Nandini Radhe Radhe.
Jaya Vrishabhanu Nandini Radhe Radhe, Vrishabhanu Nandini Radhe Radhe.
Jaya Ashtashaki Shiromani Radhe Radhe, Ashtashaki Shiromani Radhe Radhe.
Jaya Ashtashaki Shiromani Radhe Radhe, Ashtashaki Shiromani Radhe Radhe.
Jaya Kanu Mana Mohini Radhe Radhe, Kanu Mana Mohini Radhe Radhe.
Jaya Kanu Mana Mohini Radhe Radhe,
Jaya Kanu Mana
Mohini Radhe Radhe.
Jaya Govinda Nandini Radhe Radhe, Govinda Nandini Radhe Radhe.
Jaya Govinda Nandini Radhe Radhe, Jaya Govinda Nandini Radhe Radhe.
Jaya Radhe, Jaya Krishna, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Krishna.
Jaya Radhe, Jaya Krishna, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Krishna.
Jaya Sachi Nandan, Jaya Gaura Hari, Sachi Nandan, Jaya Gaura Hari.
Jaya Sachi Nandan, Gaura Hari,
Sachi Nandan,
Jaya Gaura Hari.
Gaura He, Gaura He, Gaura He, Gaura He,
Gaura He, Gaura He, Gaura He, Gaura He.
Nitai He, Nitai He, Nitai He, Nitai He.
Nitai He, Nitai He, Nitai He, Nitai.
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol.
Nitai Gaura
Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaur Hari Bol.
Nitai Gaura Hari
Bol,
Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaura Hari Bol.
Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari, Shri Shri Radha Govinda ki jai, Shri Shri Radha Vinod Bihari Ji ki jai, Srila Gurudev ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Rupanuga Guru Varga ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Samagata Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanandi Vansha Kalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhu Bhevacha Patitanam Bhavani